So this new custom decorative product, this new custom decorative panel is unique in the way that it behaves. So I'll just go ahead and draw it in from the library here. You can set whatever your options are as far as edging, materials, what the profile you want, and you can use that and draw it from there. So I'll just go ahead and draw that. And so there's a warning message that explains the details for this. And so basically you're going to draw a blank part at this point. You can take that out, draw it in 2D, add up to 5 separate polyline shapes in order to create something from it. You must enter the depth as 0.12345. The tool doesn't matter, the correction doesn't matter, but it does have to be clockwise in direction if you want the profile to be on the inside of the shape that you draw. And then when you redraw the part from 2D, it actually replaces it with a different part and draws the actual part that's going to be produced. So we'll go ahead and say cancel to that to acknowledge it, and just look at the part that we have. So this is just a blank part at this point, and so we can take this and adjust it and draw that part in 2D. So I'm going to go here and say draw my part in 2D. And so here I've got my panel. So if I wanted to make some shapes, I could go in and draw a rectangle. Maybe I've got some funny looking panels here that have some different options on them. And I need to make some custom shapes with my MDF tooling. So what I can do now is on my parts editor, I can go to my routing tools, and it doesn't matter which tool I pick as long as I put in the depth as 0.12345 and say pick existing entities, and I'll grab these 3 separate items. And those are going to be my parts. The direction of compensation really doesn't matter. I could change it and adjust it. As long as the direction of travel is in a clockwise direction, then that's fine. What I do want to do is make sure that I add a lead in and lead out to these parts. So must do that in order for this to work. So I'm going to say change my set mill. I want to bring the tools in at a different location. So I'll say on this one I want to change it to there. And then I'll change this one, bring the tools in right there. And I'll do this one out on the side here. So then what I need to do is add a lead in, and because of the way that the MDF tools work, if I have any sort of internal profile, I want to make sure that I don't overlap that. So I want to go down here and select whether it's a ramped and arced lead, and so here I'll just say there's no arc, it's just a ramp lead in. And so I'll say add lead into polyline, and I'll select on that, and I could either use a nearest snap or the midpoint there and add that as a lead in, and then I want to add a lead out as well, and same thing for all of my other ones. Okay, so now I've got my parts all set up. They've got lead ins and lead outs on them. And I have everything I need in order to make this up. So now if I go back to my parts, what you'll see is when I update part and redraw product, that part is actually going to disappear, and I'll be left with the actual parts that I'm going to machine. You can see I've got my edge panel profile on there. So if I'm using this as a side panel on a cabinet, so this is a left panel, if I want to turn off the rear edge, for example, then I'll just ignore that message now. Then I can turn off my rear edge and it will adjust accordingly. And I can go and take this, and if I flip it, so now let's say I wanted to make this a right panel, it is actually going to make a reverse image of that part. So if I wanted to do 2 decorative panels, one on each side of my product, upper cabinet or something like that, then I could adjust that accordingly. If I did want to make any additional changes to the part, if I wanted to change the original profiles, the best way to do that would be to turn back on that original part. It is still there, it's just hidden. So here there's a frozen hidden parts layer, and so here we can see that there's my part. And so now if I were to go back and draw this part, and so let's go ahead and draw that in 2D again. Make sure I got the blue one. And so now if I go back and I adjust those shapes, I can adjust as needed and update my part accordingly. So now if I update my draw only panel, because that's the one I'm working on, update my part and redraw, you'll see that my original part does in fact adjust accordingly. So it's the combination of those two parts. If I did actually want to add, additional machining to this part, then I could in fact draw the finished part out in 2D once I've got everything sorted there. And if I go in and I don't want to do this until I'm sure on all of my shapes and profiles and everything are good. But then if I wanted to, add additional machining actually with, make a cutout on there, something like that, I can go to my routing tools. And so now I'm actually going to make this 0.8 deep and pick existing and change that. And so this is going to be actual machining that I'm going to include on my finished part. And so now I'm working on the panel and update part and redraw. And then I can create custom finished shapes